Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
And today we're going to talk about people who write with their left hand. I know most people are right-handed, but there is a certain number of people who write with their left hand. They're oftentimes called lefties. And do you know anybody who's left-handed, Stephanie?
Oh, yeah. We have somebody here who records all the time for us, and that's Mike.
Oh, he's left-handed.
And, I had forgotten every time, because you went on vacation, Tom. Tom's back. Yay, everybody. But every time I record with him, I forget. And then I see him write, and I think, oh, my gosh, he's a lefty. Do you know what, though? When I was growing up, I wanted to be left-handed so badly. And if you're into sports, especially baseball, you know that being a lefty is a very good advantage for pitchers in particular, but even hitters. There's a big advantage to being a left-handed hitter or a pitcher, and you can get more money. So if you are left-handed, don't let your parents, train you out of it. Hang on to it, especially if you're a sports person.
Well, it's kind of unusual. I know my mother was left-handed.
Oh, yeah?
And my father, I thought he was left-handed because I always saw him writing with his left hand. But he says, well, I'm actually right-handed, but I prefer to write with my left hand. If you can figure out what that means.
Oh, that's weird, huh?
It was really weird, yeah. But I'm normally right-handed, but there are some things I do left-handed, like if I'm playing pool, I'll use my left hand.
Oh, interesting.
And if I shoot a rifle, I will use my left hand. That's kind of because my right eye is kind of bad.
Oh, it's better, yeah.
And I think it's true that some people who are right-handed will do other things left-handed as well. It kind of depends on what you're doing. I think, what is it, Phil Mickelson or something? The golfer is right-handed, but he's... Phil Mickelson, yeah. I think he actually plays golf left-handed, even though he's normally right-handed.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Kind of weird.
We're going to talk about a little bit more about lefties and how there's a day to honor them. We have a day to honor everybody, so why not left-handed people? We're going to do what we always do. We're going to read through today's article, and then we'll be back.
Celebrated on August 13th, International Left-Handers Day shines a spotlight on the left-handed minority. This annual holiday aims to raise awareness for left-handed people who have faced discrimination and inconvenience in a world dominantly built for righties. Historically, being left-handed was considered taboo or even evil, and this is reflected in many languages. The English word left comes from the Anglo-Saxon lift, which means weak. Likewise, the word sinister, coming from the Latin for left, suggests evil or misfortune. This dual meaning persists in many modern European languages, such as sinistra in Italian. Religious beliefs have compounded the challenges for left-handers. For instance, the Bible portrays Christ at God's right hand, associating the left with negativity. God welcomes those on his right into heaven and casts those on his left into hell. In Islam and Hinduism, the right hand is for food handling, whereas the left is for hygiene, thereby branding the left as the unclean hand. Though these prejudices have diminished over time, left-handers still encounter numerous daily inconveniences. School desk and chair sets usually feature the table on the right, making writing on them awkward for lefties. Additionally, bank pens are often tied to the right side of counters. The right-hand bias in product design can turn simple tasks into frustrating experiences. International Left-Handers Day not only encourages left-handers to embrace their uniqueness, but also invites right-handers to consider the advantages they enjoy. Let's use this day to promote a more inclusive society where being different is not just accepted, but celebrated.
Okay, guys, let's dive in. So it's a day to honor or, look at respect with these left-handed individuals. And Tom's got a lefty right there in his family. I don't. I had a brother-in-law that was left-handed, but, he's my brother-in-law, so he's not in my family directly. But I always wanted to be a left-handed person. I just thought it looked so cool. Anyway, we're going to talk about this. So we celebrate International Left-Handers Day on August 13th. It says that's when we shine a spotlight on the left-handed minority. Of course, there are more righties in the world, right-handed people. If you shine a spotlight on something, you kind of draw attention to it. This originally came from the stage. If you are an actor, there's especially the main actor or main actress, there's a spotlight that actually follows you on stage because you're the most important person. Supposedly, everybody's wanting to look at you. So we shine a light on these folks, a spotlight on these folks, just to give them more attention.
Exactly. And, of course, they need the attention as well because, it's kind of hard being left-handed. You might think it's pretty easy, but actually there are some different kind of situations.
Yeah.
Or writing, for example, we normally write from left to right. If you're left-handed, as soon as you write something, the words disappear under your hand. So how are you supposed to know what you're writing?
It's messy, isn't it?
I remember my dad had to sort of curve his hand around so that he could see what he was writing. It was kind of unusual, but that's what happens. And, of course, there are other problems which we'll address later on in the article. But again, this annual holiday, a holiday that takes place once a year, aims to raise awareness for left-handed people who have faced discrimination and inconvenience in a world dominantly built for righties. So yes, indeed, they have faced discrimination and inconvenience. Inconvenience is a situation in which things are inconvenient. It's difficult to do things. I did give you just an example there a few seconds ago about trying to write from left to right. If you're left-handed, of course, it's kind of unusual. It's kind of strange to be writing that way, and that is an inconvenience. And that's something that right-handed people take for granted.
We do.
Why can't you write? You're left-handed, you can write. I can write with my right hand. What's the difference? Well, there is a difference.
What's the big deal? My mother was a big sewer. She was a great seamstress. And so one thing I noticed almost immediately was that there were different scissors that you could buy in the stores.
Yeah.
Based on whether you were a righty or a lefty. And it seemed like everything for left-handed people was more expensive. Just because they don't make as many things for lefties, so of course the price is a little higher. But there were other things beyond that. But let's keep going here. Dominantly is one of our vocabulary words. And here it kind of means largely or mainly. So everything was mainly built for righties. So if something dominates something else, it's more popular, perhaps it's stronger, it has more power. But here it just means largely or mainly. They were built for righties because there are far more people who are right-handed than left-handed.
Okay, here moving on to the next paragraph, it says, historically, being left-handed was considered taboo or even evil, and this is reflected in many languages. So according to history, if you were left-handed, well, it was considered taboo. If something's taboo, it's considered like bad luck or it's not something that's supposed to happen. So, of course, if you have this behavior, people will think that you're possessed by the devil or something like that. So it's just not something you want to do. If you were left-handed in the past, you probably tried your hardest to use your right hand to write, for example. Otherwise, people would find out that you're left-handed and they would beat you to a pulp because they thought you were evil or something.
Oh, maybe long ago, yeah, because they were weird. This is a weird word for me, Tom, because until I got to Taiwan and I was, talking about English, I never noticed that you could say this in a different way, which is taboo, which is so weird. And that's the first pronunciation in our dictionary. But ignore that, guys. Most everyone says it like Tom and like me, and that's taboo. Ta like apple, taboo. There are also taboos. You're not supposed to talk about sex in polite company or with people you don't know, or you're not supposed to talk about politics with taxi cab drivers in Taiwan.
You're in big trouble there. Unless you totally agree with them, then you're okay.
But we're told these taboos, things you shouldn't do, those are considered taboos. But long ago, you might be put to death because someone thought you were an evil spirit because you were a left-hander. So there were some weird things going on. So this is reflected in many languages that being left-handed was considered evil. The English word for left comes from the Anglo-Saxon word. Anglo-Saxon just means Old English from long, long ago, the 5th century to the Norman conquest. And actually, Anglo-Saxon can just simply be someone whose native language is English. So it's that simple. But this goes back to Old English. That's why Lyft looks like an Uber service for those of us from America. There's a Lyft service, the Uber service. It's they're similar. But here, it's an old word which actually meant weak. So left was weak. And I guess if you're right-handed and you tried to use your left hand, you were kind of weak. It's not quite as strong. So, because it has something to do with how our brains function, those things are connected. Likewise, the word sinister, which means evil, comes from the Latin for left. So if you speak a Latin language like Spanish or Italian, that suggested if you were left-handed that you were evil, or maybe it suggested some misfortune. Misfortune means bad luck. If you talk about someone's misfortunes, their hardships they're suffering in their life, maybe their health is bad or they've lost a job, that's a misfortune.
Okay, so this dual meaning persists in many modern European languages, such as sinistra in Italian. So we've got this dual meaning. Dual just means double meaning. It has two meanings, and it continues or persists in many modern European languages and maybe languages around the world as well. To persist just means to continue. For example, maybe if you're looking for a job and you really want a certain kind of job and you don't take no for an answer, you persist. You keep calling them and saying, hey, I'm talented. I deserve that job. Please give it to me. They say, well, not today, but you persist. You keep calling, and eventually maybe they'll give you the job. Who knows?
Or they might think you're irritating, so be careful.
Yeah, don't overdo it. But in any case here, yes, this meaning continues or persists in lots of modern European languages, and we've got the example of the word sinistra in Italian, which I guess means left in Italian, but it means sinister as well. Oh no, don't be an Italian left-handed person. They'll think you're evil.
At least they did long ago. Hopefully not anymore. Right now, guys, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to finish off this particular day in the life of a left-hander.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的课程是暑期合刊 Unit 6-1 Day to Honor Left-handed Individuals。这个单元是篇克漏字测验，内容和惯用手有关。我相信听众当中一定有不少人是左撇子。不晓得大家从小到大生活、求学这一段过程当中，是否曾经遭遇很多不便？生活当中有很多设施设计，其实都是以惯用右手的人做考量，而忽略了左撇子的需求。还好，有越来越多人重视左撇子的权益，甚至于把8月13号定为国际左撇子日。好，我们现在一起来解题吧。请同学看到第一段，第一段开头提到，在8月13号庆祝的国际左撇子日，聚焦于左撇子这一少数群体。接着就是第一题题干 This annual holiday aims to 这个一年一度的节日，目的主要是想要提高大家对于左撇子的认识。他们在一个主要为右撇子建立的世界当中，面临了空格和不便。好，第一题4个选项都是名词，这一题必须利用上下文判断，选出最适合的词汇。我们一起看4个选项的中文意思。A. Romance 罗曼史爱情故事。 B. Discrimination 歧视或者差别对待。 C. Fantasy 是幻想。 D. Applause 是掌声。那空格应该要填入和 inconvenience 能够互相呼应，一样是表达负面经历的单字，所以第一题我们就选 B. Discrimination。 好，接着请同学看到第二段。第二段一开头提到，从历史上看，左撇子是大家视为禁忌的，而且呢，甚至是邪恶的。在很多语言当中，我们都可以看得到一些具体的例子，比方说英文单字 left 是在 Anglo-Saxon 就盎格鲁撒克逊语的 left， 那在意思上表示软弱的意思。那紧接着请看第2题，题干提到空格来自拉丁语当中表示左边的单词 sinister， 暗示着邪恶或不幸。这种双重含义在许多现代欧洲的语言当中依然存在，比方意大利语当中也有这样的单字。那第2题空格呢是介于2个句子中间，应该是为了要让语义通顺连贯所放入的承接词或转折词。那如何去判断呢？我们要看的是这2个句子是相反的概念或类似概念。我们发现前后2句，前一句是用 Anglo-Saxon 语来做说明，后一句则是用拉丁文做说明，表明左边的概念不论在哪个语言里都偏向负面的语义，因此前后2句是类似的概念。所以第2题答案选 A likewise， 表示同样的拉丁语当中表示左边的单词 sinister 暗示着邪恶或不幸。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. We're talking about left-handed individuals. We're celebrating International Left-Handers Day, which will take place on August 13th. Now, here in the 3rd paragraph, it says, religious beliefs have compounded the challenges for left-handers. Okay, so we've got some problems with it being taboo or evil, but we've also got religious beliefs that are making the problem even more troublesome for left-handed people. It has compounded the challenges. It has made them worse. For instance, the Bible portrays Christ at God's right hand, associating the left with negativity. So I guess if you're Christian, you will know about this. Christ is at God's right hand, not God's left hand. And so, of course, if you're left-handed and you're a Christian, maybe they'll view you suspiciously or something. Hey, isn't Christ at God's right hand, but you're left-handed? Doesn't that mean you're running with the devil or something like that?
Well, I never thought of this, and I'm very religious, so that's very interesting. But we always knew that when Christ would appear with the Father, because Jesus Christ is the Son, obviously, and then there's the Holy Ghost, he was always on the right hand of God. So, if you're right-handed, if you're somebody's right hand in business, guys, we use this phrase, she or he, so-and-so, the CEO's right-hand guy or right-hand man, right-hand lady. That means that they're their most, I think, important and trusted assistant. So being someone's right hand is also very good. And supposedly associating the left, at least in religion, with negativity. I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, you don't want to be on God's left. You want to be on the right. God welcomes those on his right into heaven and casts those on his left into hell. Here, cast means to throw, to put away. If you go fishing, guys, you want to cast your line. That long string is the line. You want to cast your line into the water, see if you can attract some fish. Here, you're casting bad folks who belong in hell. And so you wanted to be on God's right hand. What does it mean in Islam and Hinduism?
Islam, of course, is the Muslims' religion. So in Islam and Hinduism, which of course is from India, the right hand is for food handling, whereas the left is for hygiene, thereby branding the left as the unclean hand.
Interesting.
Now, if we're comparing two things, we do use the word whereas. We're contrasting things, or we're comparing things like John likes rice, whereas Sam likes noodles, or whereas. That just means in contrast to something. So indeed, we've got Islam and Hinduism here, and they both believe that the right hand is the clean hand, so you can handle food with your right hand. But we use the left hand for hygiene, which means you wipe your butt with your left hand. So, of course, you don't want to be using that to eat your food. And that, of course, means the left hand is the unclean hand.
But if it's for hygiene, which means cleanliness, it's also used for cleaning your body. So that's a good thing. Your left hand would be very clean at that point. I wanted to mention something before we move on from this particular paragraph. The first sentence there says, religious beliefs have compounded the challenges for left-handers. You can pronounce it either way. To compound a problem or compound a problem or a difficulty or a mistake means you make it worse by adding something more to it. So that's why we're talking about some things that have made life hard for lefties in the past that go beyond even what the word means. Religious beliefs have made it harder for lefties, at least in the past. It made things harder for lefties. We're going to move on to the next paragraph. It says, though these prejudices have diminished over time, left-handers still encounter numerous daily inconveniences. What's a prejudice? It's some sort of belief you have about maybe an action, a people, that's based on a preconceived opinion. Maybe you have this opinion before you even know anyone who's in that particular group of people, or maybe before you've even seen a particular problem in life, you already have an idea about how you should feel about it. That's a prejudice. And so these are prejudices have diminished over time. They've been reduced. People think that people that are left-handed are evil or sinister or even unclean. But left-handers still encounter or come across some pretty tough daily challenges, you could say.
Yeah, you might come across or encounter problems in your daily life. Maybe the bus is so slow and you can't get to work on time, or somebody stole your wallet or something. You might encounter or come across or experience those problems. And yes, they have these daily inconveniences. For example, school desk and chair sets usually feature the table on the right, making writing on them awkward for lefties. I never thought of that. We used to have those study chairs back in school. If you wanted to write, of course, the level surface was on your right, so that was pretty easy. If you were left-handed, what the heck were you supposed to do? Move your arm across the front of your body and try to write that way? That would be very awkward.
Yeah, that's hard. This word encounter just means to come across something without planning on it. It's kind of a spontaneous thing. To encounter something means it's unexpected to you. You didn't plan on it. So I know when I was growing up, Tom, we already had a couple of desks in each of my classrooms. I noticed that were kind of reserved for the lefties.
All right.
But, what did they do, before I was born? I don't know. It would have been tough for these left-handers. So there's a bias towards being right-handed. It helps you. Additionally, it says bank pens, think about this, are often tied to the right side of counters instead of the left. A counter can be a long kind of table or maybe a surface in a store. When you get ready to purchase something, you go to the counter. Sometimes they're called checkout counters, and you put your things on the counter and then they ring them up and you pay for what you have picked up in the store. That's a counter. But banks have counters too, where you kind of have space to write your deposit slip or your withdrawal slip, things like that.
And the right-hand bias in product design can turn simple tasks into frustrating experiences.
True.
So there are lots of different kinds of devices or products that are designed for people to use and mostly hold in their right hand. We never really think about it too much. I can't think of any examples offhand, but I'm sure left-handed people know all about this.
Yeah.
I can't use that because it's designed for right-handed people. If I try to use it, I might hurt myself or something. You did bring up the example of scissors, for example.
Yeah.
And I remember my mother had a special calligraphy pen for left-handers. If she wanted to write in English calligraphy,
it's really pretty.
It was a different kind of pen altogether there. And so that can be frustrating. If something's frustrating, that means you just can't do it and you really feel anxious because you can't do it. You can't fulfill what you want to do. You might be frustrated because the girl you have a crush on isn't giving you the time of day. How can I get her to notice me? It's
Darn
so
it.
frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm such a great guy. I'm so handsome. I'm strong. I have a lot of money, but she's not paying me any attention. Oh, it's so frustrating. And yes, indeed, simple things that we take for granted as right-handers can be frustrating for left-handers.
So what's the conclusion here? International Left-Handers Day not only encourages left-handers to embrace their uniqueness, hey, you're pretty unique if you're a lefty, but it also invites right-handers to consider the advantages they enjoy. Maybe be grateful if you're a right-hander, although if you are a lefty and you're a sports guy or gal, that's a good thing for you. So let's appreciate that as well. So we're supposed to use this day to promote or encourage a more inclusive society. If something's inclusive, especially a society, it means it doesn't keep other people out. It welcomes everybody. Hey, everybody, let's all join together and be friends. That's a great way to live.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen now to our Chinese teacher.
我们接着解第3题，宗教信仰左撇子的挑战。比方说，圣经当中将基督描绘在上帝的右手边，将左边和负面连结在一起。上帝欢迎站在他右边的人进入天堂，而站在左边的人呢，则会进入地狱。这一题4个选项都是动词，那就只能用上下文来判断，找出最适合的词汇。我们一起看4个选项的中文意思。A. Resolved 表示决定、下决心。B. Abolished 表示废止、废除。C. Deserved 表示值得、应得的。而 D. Compounded 表示加剧或者让什么东西恶化。那空格前一段说明左撇子在许多语言当中受到歧视，而空格这个句子它作为这一段的主题句，接着呢提出宗教信仰在这个当中所扮演的角色，并且提出基督教、伊斯兰教、印度教等等的例子，要佐证这些宗教其实呢加剧了左撇子的挑战。因此答案呢选 D。 接着第4题，第4段开头提到，尽管这些偏见随着时间推移有所减少，左撇子在日常生活当中还是有很多不便。再来是题干，学校的课桌椅通常会把桌面设置在右边，让左撇子在桌面上书写的时候怎么样？好，4个选项也都是形容词，那只能够按照前后文意来筛选。我们一起看4个选项的中文意思。A. Divine 神圣的。 B. Precise 精确的。 C. Awkward 不适合的或者尴尬的、卡卡的那一类的意思。再来 D. Gracious 是亲切和蔼的。好，学校的课桌椅通常会把桌面呢设在右侧，这对左撇子来说，在这样的桌子上面写字呢就会变得卡卡的，所以答案选 C。 那接下来最后我们看第5题咯。我们可以看到第5题所在的地方，这里呢是这一句总结国际左撇子日的重要性，所以第5题答案选 C。 Not only but also 这句话什么意思啊？表示这个日子不仅鼓励左撇子接受自己不一样的地方，他们的独特性，而且也邀请惯用右手的人能够思考自己所享有的这些优势，那能够设身处地的去思考别人的不便。好，以上就是我们对这一篇克鲁兹测验所做的中文解题讲解，谢谢大家。
Well, that's all the time we have for today, guys. We hope you liked learning a little bit more about what it feels like to be left-handed and where that left-handed idea comes from, how people were treated in the past and how they should be treated in the future. If you have a left-handed friend, maybe it's a time to, celebrate them a little bit. We hope you enjoyed learning more about this. And if you want to learn some more tips, go to AMC on our Facebook page. You can follow us there for more learning tips. And also, hey, sign up for our account on YouTube to try some more content. That's it. We're sure glad you joined us. We hope you'll come back soon. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.